I read ahead, being I'm waiting for my glue to dry. There. That's all there is to the tail. I heated up my iron. There's a little bit of covering and a little lifting spots around the blind nuts. The covering in this airplane is actually pretty good. Ultra coat I find is nice if you like the saran wrap. Saran wrap is what I call the plastic covering. If you like the saran wrap, I found that the ultra coat's pretty good. I've used it for recovering ARFs. People gave me a pranked, and I was actually quite impressed how it went on. So yeah, you can always find something to do while you're waiting for your glue to dry. I read ahead, and the next step was the tail feathers. Okay, it's pretty straightforward setup. The nuts, the thing just bolts together, man. It's crazy. Slide them in there. Washers. Don't need Loctite because she's got self-locking nuts. There. Let's get a little socket and I'll tighten those bad boys up. There. Don't want to tighten your nuts with the pliers. Tighten your nuts with the proper tool. My biggest worry about this is the head's turning inside in here. Because these are self-locking nuts. Hopefully they're glued in there good with something with a wide head on. Don't want to go to town tightening these up, as you'll just crush the wood. And especially with self-locking nuts, or nylocks as we always call them, it's really hard on wood to determine where you're at. So all I do is turn them until I see them slightly puckering up the covering, and there's just starting to sink in a teeny little bit. That's tight enough. That's quite the setup. My epoxy's getting dry. Short rod, 18 3/8 inch or 467 millimeters. Center hole of the rudder. Okay, this is the short one. I'm not going to measure them. I use the short one. Short one goes on the rudder. Alright. Okay. And long one goes on the elevator. Center hole the elevator. That's high quality. What happens when your rod's bigger than the hole? Alright. Oh, we're into a fuselage now. I already went over this and ironed it up. A little hint. Little teeny smuds there, but when you're going over the numbers on this airplane, just rest the iron over it and lift it off. Don't move it along, because if you do, you get a little smudgy like I got there. Alrighty, whitey. That's one. There's two. It's pretty good. You know, for control line, that's stiff. We'll see how it feels in the air. Now, ideally, I thought, I didn't realize that these are pre-hinged. Ideally, what I would have done was opened up those hinges with the electric inslot tool, and I would have put Dubro hinges in there. Put a slight bend. Yeah, that helped. Put a little bow, as you can, no, you can see that. Put a little bow, and that helped alleviate the rubbing and made it a little easier. The rate I'm going here, I'll have this sucker out tomorrow. Okay, I had to hunt down a couple of washers because they only gave me 2 instead of 4. I'm using a little bit of Loctite, a little bit of blue, temporary, or what do they call it? Removable, that's what they call it. And I know it's electric, but I still watch my tail feathers bounce around or come flying off while I'm flying. I wouldn't mark that down as a good time. The way my luck's been going, I ain't gonna risk it. So from he who falls on brand new airplane, it's pretty much. Look at that, even fit in the hole. Really, when that happens. These alignments they got here leave a lot to be desired, I'll tell you. So I'm just gonna stick them on the bench because I got to pull down a little bit to get those holes lined up perfectly. Then for a minute there, I thought I was going to have to go in and elongate that hole in the fuselage a little, but I didn't. Not yet, anyway. Of course, the second one falls right in place, which is kind of what I figured would have happened. So these just, I think I have a gimped up hand. I have to worry so much about over tightening the screws. Alrighty, there's the tail feathers on. All that done while waiting for the epoxy to dry. Sweet. Next step, rudder servo installation, control line option. Okay, there's a contradiction of terms. Anyway. Shouldn't say too much after having put together CMP planes and that. The instructions are, I spend more time laughing than anything. It's the way they word things, it's just pretty hilarious. Alright, here's your control line rudder servo. And I gotta say, you know, there's a lot of stuff already done for you in this kit. I'm going to give that a little goose of beans. It's playing a rather important part. little bit of CA. It's the two reasons. One's going to harden up the wood a bit, just to make sure those joints are as good as they should be. Yeah, don't throw that up against your wing. I haven't had the dumbass of the day award for a while. I kind of like to keep it that way. Hogging that award lately, especially when I was building it. My ill-fated I didn't want you to take that off, did they? Oh, ain't that a gem? There's a spray pattern on this. Guaranteed to hit everything within 8 square inches, except for what you're aiming at. Alrighty. Yeah, pretty much the same as the elevator. And now that that's all nice and hard, I got a little bit of drilling to do, I think. My hand is the next best thing to useless. They didn't like being in that splint one bit. There we go. Books say put it in the outside one, which is why I gave it a dose of thin, just to make sure the wood's good and hard. Because after all, and when I do this, I make sure the plier is flat on the bottom of the wood. Doesn't matter so much on the brass if that's a little bit. I press it down, and then it'll push through the wood without ripping the bottom out. But making sure that bottom jaw is flat against the wood. You can squeeze them in there. If I can keep this centered, and I just kind of. Once he's bottomed out, I'll very gently work them through. I'll use the bigger pliers because it gives me room on the bottom there. There. That's how you avoid splintering the hell out of the wood underneath. It's supported on either side by the notch and the teeth of the pliers. Works like a damn. And like I showed you before, same thing here. It goes right through. It doesn't crimp it in all the way, but it does go through enough to get on the other side. Or I can just hold it with my thumb on one side, pliers on the other. Done. There. One high-tech control line rudder holder and placer. Okay, just put that control line rudder locker, I guess you'd call it, in place. Put it where it needed to be. Put the wire through the easy connector. Just mark the 2 spots where the hole has to be drilled with the pencil. Just stick it in there, give it a spin. Now we'll take it out, drill the 2 holes, and lock that bad boy down. These guys already got a doubled up underneath, so that's good. I don't have to add. Usually most ARFs, or even the kits, you have to put an extra piece of plywood underneath the servo trays, so you got some meat there for the screw to bite into. This guy's already got it. Probably whether you build kits or ARFs, these little drill vices for getting into spots like that, they're a must. They're great little rigs. Okay, that's what that looks like inside. 2 screws holding that plate down. The rudder push rod's going through it. Put a little blob of temporary or removable Loctite on that screw. Locked it in. And I got about 3/8 of an inch offset in the rudder, and they even call for that. I know the guys that I fly with tend to run them straight. Even the PT-19 I have from Hangar 9, the rudder's straight. But I'm going to do what they tell me, because nothing like spending a minute or two running backwards trying to keep your lines tight. So I'll go with this, and I'll just kind of ease it off maybe. That's a nice about this setup, you can piss around with it. But we'll go with their recommendations to begin with. But it's not taking long. I think one video and one night's going to have this thing flying. Or ready to go. Or finished. Or something. Okay, your Bellcrank plate comes in a bag with the Bellcrank was on it. You take it off, because it's got to come through the side of the fuselage here. And all you got to do, I mean the blind nuts and everything are in place here. You plop them in place after you take the Bellcrank off. I'm using a little bit of blue glue on the threads, screwing her in. That's all there is to that. And when this here is one piece. It's not a bolt and bushing setup. This thing's actually a machine Bellcrank mount. So you just I just grabbed that with a pair of pliers to get that nylock nut off, rather than holding on to the other side, because it won't work. The nut will just come off because it's one piece. This is a chintzy piece of crap. I took it apart. It's actually got a ball bearing in there. It's not such a chintzy piece of crap after all. Because normally you want to go with the nylon, but everything looks like she's done up reasonably well. I'm gonna go with it. What the hell? Okay, before I cut this out, I went over the whole fuselage with the iron, get the wrinkles and stuff out, and I made sure all the edges were ironed first. Then I heated up the rest to shrink it up. Nothing more fun than when you shrink up and it pulls away from the edge. I didn't do that. I've done it years ago. Kind of learned from that, so I figured I'd mention. So now I went around the edge here, where your lead out guide hole goes. And I'll take the covering off. And you want to use a nice sharp blade for that, like I'm not doing. The last thing I used this blade for was cutting a piece of ooh, that's nasty. I'm going to change that. No difference there or nothing, was there? Here he is now. I'm supposed to be able to get this Bellcrank. And he ain't going through that hole with that thing on there, so I'm going to have to take that off. Doesn't get any duller than that, does it? But it makes a great tool for popping them off. There. It worked. One ball bearing Bellcrank mounted. Came with this really strange looking washer. It's actually a double step. It's like a bushing. I put a little oil on there. Might want to put this back on. I'll get that back on now. Don't. See where the turkeys haven't really given me a new one. This one is way larger than the others, so I'm going to have to reuse it. We'll just see how good that goes on there. Actually, felt quite a clunk when that went back in place. So that ain't coming out of there. Now, Bellcrank. There's lots of room to put that push rod in later, so don't worry about it. Strange looking bushing thing. A little bit of blue glue. And the nylock nut that goes in all the way by hand. Little tweak. Everything moves beautifully. And another note worth mentioning, it's in the plans anyway. There's a step, like you said, it looks like two washers glued together. The narrow disc of part of the washer goes on the bearing side, the wide part goes underneath the nut. So it also mentions putting this on the inside hole. There is no inside hole. Throw adjustments I do in the rudder, or the elevator I should say. Only downside is you take the whole tail off. Upside is there's only 2 screws holds it on. Now back to the wing, to the step that we left off at, where we glued the 2 halves together. The epoxy is just a little bit sticky to the touch there. And this is your last chance to do a tidy up on the joint, especially underneath where the rubber bands work. And she's hard, but you can still get the residue off with some alcohol. Like I said, this is your last chance to get at that. And that's it. It is done. And while I'm handling it, I won't have to worry about any of that sticky shit. Now, let's get that cleaned up. Make sure you get none of it on your fingers. Make sure you're not wearing watches, rings, and got long fingernails. Great way to damage a model. Few little spots. I think I'll just give them a little suck up here with the iron. Actually did a decent job. Now, we'll see how well they hold out. But they're the foam wheels, and I'm under the impression it was an American trainer. United States Army, and did a pretty good job. It's got nice wheel collars on there. I'll get in there a little bit of machine oil and get them a lube later. Your gear's springing up on this end. This is where the hole is for it to go in. 9 times out of 10, the reason is you put a little, like I did on the plane I was building in the last video I did. You got to take that corner off inside here. Try to get the pieces to fall outside so you don't get the wing rattlies. Like talking to your buddies and assembling your plane, you hear something rattling inside your wing. Take that corner off. It's on the inside of the hole. So as you can see, the 90. You get that little curve on the inside, right about here. That hangs up on that sharp corner, so you take that corner out. Everything fits flush. Now, I'll do that with the other side. Nice thing about this, they even got the holes all drilled for the clamps holding the gear in. What do you know? They even mentioned that in the instructions. Them buggers on alright. When you're putting these two in, you want to get a nice long screwdriver. And I was almost tempted, and probably wouldn't hurt. If you find it going in hard, back them out and just drill them out a little bit with a standard size screw drill. I got a feeling these are all metric anyway, but had a good hard wood they're in, I'll say that much, but it was a bit of a bugger. I gotta fix that. Bit of a bugger of a job getting these two in. So use a good screwdriver, quality one with a long one. So the hand, you gotta oil that. The handle will clear the wheel. But she's just about licked. Little slot in the top, cut the covering out, seal it up, little hole in the bottom. That's where the bolt goes through. It's your lead out guide. Slides in there slicker than a snot in a rooster's beak. There you have it. So for one screw, take that off. The other end is, of course, hooked up to the fuselage. You got a control line with a removable wing. I like that. And this is my first electric control line. I've flown quite a bit of electric RC, but it gives me a little bit of a head start in this thing, I guess. Kind of mad at myself I didn't have a speed controller. Yeah, I did. Got a 40 ampere. If that motor's not enough, the 350 or 450 that it calls for, I'll put a 480 in it. Probably, I don't know, I'm going to try it first. Control lines generally need more power. Doesn't say much in there. When I read online on YouTube, there's a couple of ads for these things, and they said the only reason why you need the 480s if you want stupid power. But, this is 40 amp, so it'll handle either or. Changing out this motor wouldn't be a big deal. My curiosity with the electric control line was enough for me to buy. Especially after seeing it on a fellow's website. Ring rat. This is the 250 ring rat. They call for a 400 motor, and a fellow on YouTube said he went 450. And I've seen what the 450 does, so if it doesn't work out in the PT-19, got a place for the 450. Got this row bar stand out, so especially when you get to the fuselage. You need something like this to hold it on. You're not going to be beating up your tail and stuff on the edge of your bench or anything. This just makes life so much easier. As luck would have it, only 2 of the screws line up with the holes there. So the Chinaman was into the opium, I guess, when he drilled those holes. I thought maybe it had to be rotated. I did all positions. Don't work. So there's only going to be 2 screws holding this bastard down. Yeah, this is how I set them up anyway. I get this on. There's only 2 screws in this friggin' mount. But I mean, I've stick mounted motors this size with balsa sticks, so I'm sure that'll hold. I'll be talking to the, see if I can't get that fixed anyway. Got my little pushy button thing in here on the inside. Lots of wire. I got the speed control. I just stuck them on the bottom of the mount. That way I can plug directly into the thing from the motor without soldering up a bunch more wires and a bunch more weight. Shoving it in here like they wanted it, I don't see any advantage. And I got plenty of wire to hook up my battery. So I'm not an electric expert, but this makes sense to me. And that's how it's going to work. So between the 2 wires, lots of room in there. Not sure exactly how the battery placement's supposed to be yet, but I'm sure I'll figure that out. Even if the battery goes in the other way. Just plug the 2 wires in first, shove them in. Still lots of wire. So should be alright. And I think the other hook and loop will be going in the bottom here to keep the old battery from slip sliding around. I find even with tie straps on them, they still want to scoot around in there. So almost done. Just hooked up the battery. Little push button thingy here. It works. Didn't spin in the right way. Got him down a little bit in the front. He's lined up good this way. But the hole, I got him off center. So she's a little tighter in the top. And the reason for that is when I put the top on, it lines up nice with the cockpits that they got here. If I put it up in the center of the hole, you get this kind of a off angle happening between the cowl and the front of the cockpit. So to keep it looking nice and smooth up here, I got her down a little bit in the front here, and I got her taped in place. Now to get it so it hides everything without having wood exposed here, I'm going to have to do a little bit of sanding around here, but that's not a big deal. I'll just get underneath with a felt pen and sand that after I get the screws drilled and screwed in. I'll mark the inside and just sand her down. And we're talking like maybe 1/16 of an inch at the most. Yeah, so get that done, and that'll pretty much be it. It's kind of a sexy looking little airplane, huh? Alright, I have one screw in. One piece of bad advice they're going to give you is okay, 16th inch hole, fine, going in there. Then they tell you to go up to 1/8. I mean, the screws they give you to go in here, you open the cowling up 1/8, and the head of the screw is going to damn near go through it. So I just went 5/64. That screw went in there just fine. So that's the next size up from the 1/16. And yeah, that was kind of silly telling you to do that. But anyway, I got that in there. I'm going to go to the other side now. I'm going to have this hole, like I said before, centered side to side, but I'm having it's going to be sloped down a bit in the front. And like I said, the reason for that is, like I said before, so all this blends together nice with the cockpits. So I'll flip her over and drill the other side. Going to mark around the inside of the cowling with this felt tip pen. Alright, get in there, took the cowling off as you can see. Put a little bit of CA in each of the holes in the cowl. It soaks into the fibers that are, you see sometimes you get a little bit of fuzz around the hole. Well, the CA gets soaked into those, hardens it up again nice. I just run my drill bit through it again. And you have to quick lick in a couple little spots. And you can see that felt mark I put on the inside. I'll get busy bringing that down now. Put the cowl back on, and I just took my bar sander there, sanded this flush the rest of the way. There's only a little bit there, just enough to push back on the cover. Now as you can see, it just plops right into place. Now, see how this all runs, the curve all matches there. Well, if I had brought this up, this hole perfectly in line with the shaft, she'd come out here and then she'd hump up. There's a little tiny bit there, but you know what? Anybody knows that, I'll kick them in the nads. Lead outs are pretty straightforward. Not sure what to make of these high-tech lead out connectors here. But, don't think they'll break, so I think I'll fly it, see what I think of the plane, and maybe I'll do some proper ones on her later. I ran the motor up with the that funky timer they got in there. I just push that button. Kind of looking like I'm going to have to make some kind of release for the thing, because calls it a timer. It's no instructions with the thing, so as far as I can tell, it's just an on-off switch. But time will tell, I suppose. But it works. Everything works. I put the Velcro in there. So keep the battery from skidding back and forth. You don't want that happening. Nothing like flying an airplane and having your CG change all the time. So that's all set up. The the way I put the speed controller in, doesn't look like I'm going to have any issues. It's a 40 amp, so if I do decide I want more power, just a matter of swapping out the motor, which would be a pretty quick and easy, painless process. That just pops right into place like it's supposed to. And all you gotta do now is put the nut and washer in the bottom here that holds the guide in place. Other than that, books say I'm finished. Well, there she is in all her glory.